When I was a graduate student, my research was to try to understand the biomechanical basis for the metabolic cost of locomotion. That is, how do the ways in which our muscles work and generate forces determine the amount of calories we burn when we move and when we walk. So I was in the library one day and I happened upon this one journal and saw this article about penguins, and that penguins have a very high metabolic cost of walking compared to other animals for their body mass. And it wasn't known why it was the case. It's thought maybe because they have this awkward waddling gait, which leads to a lot of extra work for side-to-side movement that doesn't really translate into forward movement. It was August when I discovered the paper and made a first trip down to SeaWorld in November, and we did the study in February. So it went together very quickly. SeaWorld was wonderful. They were very receptive to us doing research with them, and anything that we could do to better understand these animals and to spread that information out to the general public was something that they were very happy to help with. In addition to the emperor penguins, we studied 4 other penguins. We studied king penguins, gentoo penguins, adeles, and macaronis. So these penguins actually, they span a very large size range. And I described the emperor penguins more like cattle. You kind of heard of them here or there. And the king penguins were kind of similar to that. But the smaller penguins were very curious. So they wanted to see what was going on. They would come around and look at our equipment and start poking their head around. So they were definitely, whereas the emperor penguins kind of they stood off and did their own thing. The little small penguins would just wanted to be right in there and checking it out. So studying diverse animals can actually tell us a fair bit about ourselves, and that animals who may seem unusual or exotic in some way can actually use very similar mechanisms or processes as us. So what we learned was that we can take a different approach to understanding how the way in which we walk determines the metabolic cost of walking. So this can influence how people design prosthetic limbs, or how we might better treat people who have walking disabilities that are metabolically costly. What I took away from this study is that we had a hypothesis that walking was going to be expensive for penguins because they had this unusual waddling gait, and we found that wasn't supported. So I think the important point for me was that we have to do science to test our hypotheses, and very often we're wrong. And if we were always right, then we wouldn't need to do the experiment. So scientific research and testing experiments, that's what we do every day, and it's a critical part of our jobs.